There's 6 classes to choose from in Spellbreak. You're not sure which one to start with? You don't want to lose matches and lose time trying to find that one class works best for you. In this video, I'm going to go over everything you need to know about the 6 classes in Spellbreak so you know exactly what classes you should play. Hi guys, I'm Legionless and this channel is about helping you enjoy your games more. Subscribe to the channel if you want to enjoy your games more, and like this video to help me out. In Spellbreak, each class has a main ability called a spell and an ability cooldown called a sorcery. Spells use up your mana supply, which is sort of like a weapons ammo in other battle royales. Holding down your jump will levitate you to higher ground, which also uses mana. When you reach each new safe zone in Spellbreak, which is the constantly shrinking area safe from the spell storm that damages you, your spells and sorcery get better effects. Frostborn start with a spell called Ice Lance. It feels like and shoots like a bow where you need to hold down your button to charge up a shot that flies and arcs downward like a bow and arrow. Along the path the Ice Lance travels, it leaves an ice trail for you or anyone to move 150% faster on. It only has this effect if you start the match on the Frostborn class, not if you equip a Frost Gauntlet onto your offhand. The Frostborn sorcery is called Flash Freeze. When you cast Flash Freeze, you summon an Ice Storm AoE around you that slows enemies inside by up to 50%. Enemies inside Flash Freeze for 1.5 seconds are frozen and can't move for a short time. Used well, this is a really strong close-ranged ability that can be followed up with a gauntlet that excels at close-range combat like the Stone Gauntlet. The outside edge of Flash Freeze blocks fire, wind, and lightning projectiles, so this sorcery can also be used defensively. At level 2, you hover in air while aiming Ice Lance and enemies get highlighted while aiming. At level 3, you're immune to any damage for 0.65 seconds while casting Flash Freeze. You also remove any ignite, corrosion, or slow status effects when you cast Flash Freeze. And at level 4, Ice Lance can be overcharged for half a second and will deal an extra 35% damage. Conduits are the electric mage class with a spell called Lightning Bolt. This spell shoots bolts out after a short delay. As you cast the spell longer, the spread increases, which can make it a little harder to hit enemies at longer ranges. Lightning Bolt does 1 additional damage each bolt for a max of +5 damage per bolt until you stop casting. Conduit's sorcery is Lightning Strike, which is an AoE that you can place on the field that damages and applies the shock status effect to opponents. This is a great ability to start a fight with because it prevents your opponents from being able to use spells, sorceries, or runes, which are movement abilities, for 2 seconds. If you surprise an enemy with Lightning Strike, you have a small window to do some free damage. Be careful though, you can damage yourself with this ability and apply the shock status effect to yourself. At level 2, you gain an additional rune charge when you cast Lightning Strike. You can use your teleportation or flight rune to get behind a team, cast Lightning Strike on the team, and then use teleportation or flight again to start attacking the team from a different position. At level 3, when you cast Lightning Strike, your spells cost 0 mana to use for 4 seconds. And at level 4, Lightning Strike has an additional 4 strikes during its AoE at 0.6 second intervals between strikes. Pyromancer is the fire battle mage that throws a fireball when you use its spell. When you directly hit an enemy, they get the ignite status effect for 2 seconds, which does 4 damage per second. This is a good mid-ranged ability since it has a slower travel time and is really good with the Pyromancer sorcery Firewall at area denial. Firewall summons a wall of fire from left to right in front of the caster. Firewall lasts for 15 seconds and does 12 damage per second if someone is inside it. It also applies the ignite status effect if someone is hit by a firewall for 2 seconds. Both of these abilities are great at boxing opponents in for easy kills. At level 2, you become immune to your and your team's firewalls, and when you enter them, you take flight for 2 seconds. This is a really good way of adding some extra movement to the Pyromancer class. At level 3, your flame wall gets 100% damage increase, and at level 4, when fireball hits hits an opponent, it spawns 4 smaller fireballs that each deal 5 to 10 damage based on how close the opponent is to the center of the fireball blast. Toxicologist is the poison class and has a spell called Toxic Spray, which fires a bunch of toxic streams out. It's really strong up close, where there's almost no spread at all. The farther the projectiles travel, the wider their spread gets, so you can sort of think of this gauntlet as a shotgun. If any projectiles hit your opponent, corrosion is applied, which deals 4 damage per second, but only to their armor, not their health. Toxicologists have a sorcery called Toxic Cloud, which is an orb you throw out that creates a toxic cloud on impact. It does 12 damage per second to enemies inside and applies the corrosion status effect to anyone inside for at least 3 seconds. This is a really good sorcery to disorient opponents because they can't see through it, and it's good at area denial because they'll take damage if they enter the toxic cloud. This class is really strong up close, where you can hit as many toxic projectiles as possible. At level 2, you become immune to you and your team's toxic clouds, and when you enter the toxic cloud, you dash in the direction you were moving in and become invisible for 3 seconds. While invisible at level 3, your toxic spray does an additional 75% damage. This class is really strong at sneaking around and surprising teams with close ranged combat. At level 4, you throw 3 toxic clouds instead of just 1. Stone Shapers cast a melee-based spell called Shockwave. When you cast this spell, you slam it to the ground and an eruption travels in a straight line out from you, damaging anyone that gets hit. If you cast Shockwave in the air, you fall to the ground. If you have less than 20 armor, each time you cast Shockwave, you gain an additional 5 armor until you reach that 20 armor. The Stone Shaper's sorcery is called Boulder Fall. When you cast this ability, you hurl a giant, slow-moving boulder at the area you aimed at. Depending on how long the boulder travels through the air and how close to the center of your explosion your opponent is, it can deal between 20 and 50 damage. This class is very strong at close range combat on flat ground. When there's different elevations like slopes of hills or mountains, the shockwave eruption can have some trouble traveling. At level 2, you crash to the ground faster when you cast shockwave from the air. This is really good for when you're in the air and want to make it harder for enemies to hit you. At level 3, your boulder fall increases in size the longer it flies through the air, so it's easier to hit enemies. And at level 4, you can throw an additional boulder. Tempest have a spell called Wind Shear. Wind Shear shoots gusts of wind that are really good at close range because of the damage fall off at 5 meters. This spell is sort of like an SMG with its spread and being really easy to hit each spell at close ranges. When you're running this gauntlet on your main hand, if you cast Wind Shear near you, like on the ground at your feet or at an opponent right next to you, you'll fly in the opposite direction of the projectile. This can be a really nice movement ability when you aim it below you and is called wind jumping. When you wind jump, your mana recharge rate gets delayed from 1 second to 1.25 seconds, so this isn't something you'll want to spam, or you could be left vulnerable while you recharge your mana. Their sorcery is called Tornado and summons a wind vortex AoE in the area you aimed for. Opponents get pulled towards the center and airborne enemies get pulled down harder. Tempest is really strong at close range, especially if you initiate a fight with Tornado to trap an enemy inside. At level 2, you become immune to your and your team's tornado pulls, and when you enter your or your team's tornadoes, you get launched into the air. At level 3, your spells do 20% more damage in air, and you take 10% less damage. You can combo the flight rune with the Tempest class to escape or to initiate a fight with increased damage. And at level 4, your sorcery cooldown speed gets reduced by 100% while in air. Let me know in the comments below what class you're planning on maining in Spellbreak and the gauntlets you want to combine with your main class. Subscribe to the channel if you want to enjoy your games more, as more helpful Spellbreak content gets posted. Share this video with others so they can enjoy their games more, and join the Discord where we're playing Spellbreak together and talking about the builds we love to play and how we can each get better at the game. Thanks for watching.